Hi and welcome to the Passion and Possibilities video series where I'm Charlotte Canny from Birth Essence, and I support women to be confidently themselves giving birth. And this video series is all about all the different ways you can support yourself in pregnancy and in birth and afterwards that you might not have been aware of, that can really make your pregnancy and birth really the joyful experience you would like. And today I'm welcoming two people onto the series, and that is Kat and Florence, and they together make up the Worcestershire Doulas, and they also run the Birmingham South Positive Birth Group. So welcome today.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hello. Great. So I wonder if you could start by telling us a little bit about yourselves and how your passion to support pregnant women developed.
Oh gosh,
Have you got enough time?
Sorry, yeah. Big question. Quick summary.
Do you want to start?
Well, we're both doulas, which is a good start. I've been doing for about 4 or 5 years now. I've always been passionate, well, since I had my first baby 27 years ago. It's sort of always, do I want to be a midwife? And then you have kids and you get tied up with family, and that never happens. And then heard about doulas, this word started going round, looked into it, and I thought that's the very thing for me, that is. So it started that journey, and then met other birth workers, started the Positive Birth movement group, and it's just really grown since there. Really preoccupies quite a big part of my life, our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this interview this morning, and I was thinking, when did I start being a doula? And I think I was 6 years old. When my sister had a baby quite early on in her life, and I do remember dancing around the kitchen table while she was in labour, and that was the kind of thing my mum said was good to do. And it was my first lesson in doulaing and supporting somebody in labour, and then all the kind of emotional support that went on, and a lot of babysitting actually. But yeah, I think it's been around my life, forever, ever since I was born, really, and then just passionate about women's treatment and women's right, really. I meet a lot of doulas or people who want to be doulas who just love working with babies, but for me it's really about women, and then just making sure that they do find their own voice and they use their own voice, and kind of facilitating that. So whatever I need to do that, whether it is being a doula or running any kind of positive birth group or antenatal classes, or just even a chat with new people I meet, it's all about, do you have rights, and you have a voice and you can use it.
Yeah, that's excellent. I love that, because it was one of the reasons for starting this video series. Of when I had my first, I didn't know anything, and you go on a big journey, I think, as you've both spoken about. And I love that you started so young supporting your sister. I love that. I wish it was more in families like that, with like that is such a beautiful thing. It's just part of your everyday life, and your sister's having a baby and you were there, and I think it's really wonderful. And you've mentioned the South Birmingham Positive Birth Group. I keep tumbling over the words.
Mouthful, really.
It is. It's quite clear what it is, though. It's just a bit long. But the Positive Birth Movement was founded by Millie Hill, and I know you co-founded the South Birmingham Group 3 years ago. So would you tell us a little bit about what these groups are, what the movement is?
I think the idea, obviously, Millie would be much better than us to tell you exactly what her intentions were at the beginning and what they are now. And I think things have moved and evolved. But I think the idea was to put a little bit of a positive stand on the discussions around birth, and kind of moving away from the negativity maybe in the headlines and social media, and probably getting the message out there that it can be a very positive experience for women no matter what the kind of birth they have, there's no camp, whether it's a natural birth or an elective cesarean birth. The idea was that any opportunity to make it a positive experience needed to be shared. So that's what really appealed to us.
And I think also for women to find other women. So, and that's women like them, not experts.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, some are run by midwives, some are run by doulas like us, but ultimately the women that go are the ones that are sharing their stories, their experiences. We're just facilitating the space for them to do it, really. And I think that's the beautiful thing about those groups. Everybody's got a voice, everybody can ask questions, everybody can share their knowledge, their experiences, and I think that's probably what makes them so special, really.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say that I didn't mention at the beginning that I also host the North Birmingham Positive Birth Group. So as I was interviewing you, I asked the question first, and yeah, that was what appealed to me as well, that it was a place for women just to meet and to share their positive experiences, and then there's signposting on if they need something specific or if any questions can be answered. And it was women together, like a group, a community together. And like you said, the contrast with, say, general media or stories that often get shared are negative stories, when as soon as you birth, oh well, I heard about this one, oh don't do this. So just to really, when you have a desire and you've got a group of like-minded women witnessing you and saying, yeah, go for it, you feel more courage and confidence to go for that you really want. And it's also a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah.
We've laughed.
We had some really good time. Yeah. And it's come to, I mean, sometimes it is very emotional and quite profound, but I think it's about making a safe place. It's about saying to women, there's no judgment here. Everybody has a voice and can express their feelings if they wish to. They don't have to. It's not a therapy session, but it's really about creating that safe space, not just for moms, but for partners, but also for sometimes other healthcare professional coming and popping in and feeling that that they also have a voice and they can also explain where they're coming from and have these dialogues with pregnant women and explaining what the reasons behind certain things are, and intervention, and what the system offers and the limitation of the system, kind of so discussions of sometimes
really important,
really change people's perspective completely. So it's a really good platform. It's not easy to run because it's volunteering and there's no money in it, and we rely a lot on the community to support us. So it's been a journey anyway.
It speaks to the passion there is for improving birth and for women, that it's run by volunteers, it's no cost to attend the groups, so it's all on everyone's goodwill, and there's a lot of goodwill and a lot of passion about supporting women to have a voice, as you said, to feel safe and to speak up for what they want. And so it's, as you said, run by volunteers, run for the desire to improve things for everybody, and that women can, there's no barrier to accessing it, as it is free, or sometimes there's a donation to cover something like the room or teas and coffees and things like that. I know you provide teas and coffees when you come here. And what is the difference with these meetings between that and, say, an actual antenatal class? I often get people asking about my antenatal classes and I'm trying to work out why, because I've looked at all my listings and it isn't antenatal class, but I'll get a lot of people asking me, well, can I come to your antenatal class? When is the next one? And how would you explain the difference if people ask you that?
Well, there's no sort of formal education structure to them. There's a topic. We've always had a topic for ours, haven't we? And we've sort of loosely based the discussions around the topic. And some things might come up that will be educative for some people, but that's not the agenda. We're not going to talk about the ins and outs of the physiology of birth per se. We might look around how people feel about those things. They might share their experience, tips and different things might come up for certain aspects, but there's no agenda. I think is the big thing. We're not on a hard drive south to educate these women on how to give birth. It's very different in that way. It doesn't belong to a school of thought or a method. It's very different.
And depending on who attends on that day as well, if somebody comes in with a question that, you know, she's very happy to discuss with the group, then it might be the theme then, and we start from that. So it's really about addressing the needs of the people who are coming that day, and we always have, you know, a theme in the background, or whether something's been topical, maybe something's been in the news,
but
or
we've ditched it just as quickly, haven't we?
Yes. So sometimes we start and then we just completely say, oh,
actually,
okay,
no.
that's not going to be the discussion for today, and then we'll move on and then go to something that is more relevant to the people in that room. So
I've often found when I've run groups that there's kind of a theme, whatever theme you think you're putting on it, the people that turn up, I've all got the same thoughts on that day that comes. The theme suddenly comes out like organically, if you like. So I love it that you can just follow that and really follow what the women want.
Which of course you couldn't with an antenatal series, because you'd have your session for that day, that week, and you're committed to it no matter what else.
And people come with expectations if they know, obviously, because, you know, antenatal, usually people pay for it, they have a certain expectation, they've been told this is what we will cover. So, but with a group like this, it's much more flexible.
Excellent. Yeah. So why do you feel it's so important at the moment to change this dialogue around birth and for women to meet up and hear the positive stories that your group offers?
But from the doula point of view, I think I know there are plenty of places where women can meet up, but as somebody who facilitates training for new doulas, the difference is that this is a place where the rules are established. There won't be any judgment, and that's very clear from the beginning. And it's not like a coffee morning or a toddlers group when actually people don't really necessarily know each other, but they're also not looking for the same thing. As, you know, changing that dialogue is really about making it safe for women to say either I don't know, or I wish I'd done it differently, or it's really more of a reflective platform, really, I think. And that's what I really like about it, that it really changes the dialogue. It's not about talking briefly about a particular experience someone's had. It's really going a bit deeper, really, and not being casual about it. It's about not perpetuating that trauma every time that story gets told. It's really about working with it and trying to kind of see the positive that kind of come from that. So it's
I think women want to hear that that birth is okay, and that and also that if it doesn't go as they would have hoped and dreamed, it isn't going to be a disaster. Because I think they see it as a binary thing almost sometimes when you speak to them. There's the good birth over here, and then there's the disaster birth. So good birth was all beautiful, and there was the pool and the candles and lights, and it was lovely, whatever it is that they've got that picture of. And then if they end up with an emergency cesarean or an induction or all these other things get bandied about, suddenly it's a negative experience by default. And I think the conversations in the positive birth group help change that. Because women they really want to hear they're going to be okay whatever happens.
The message from us really is constantly nobody fails in birth. Unfortunately, some women do feel like that, and I need to say that sometimes they've been kind of educated that way, that birth is a particular path, and if they don't follow that path, or if they don't achieve that particular birth they've got in mind, that has been kind of taught to them, then they failed, and that's really damaging. And it is something that sense of failure that they carry for the rest of their life. So we're trying to kind of say, you know, nobody fails in birth. There are things that maybe, you know, with hindsight, so we could have done differently, or different decisions made, but actually women just, you know, make decisions with what they've got at the time, and it's recognizing that. I think if anything fails, is the system that is not there to support them and empower them to make those decisions, but never women.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah,
women are very strong. And what kind of transformations do you see in the women who come to your group, maybe over time, and then they're able to have their birth experience, however it goes? Because I think that's a really important point you made, that it's and one of the things I think that Millie says as well is, and other people I've heard say, is that your birth can feel positive even if the plan doesn't come to fruition the way you planned it, depending on whether you felt supported, respected, had dignity, were heard. And many of those are the most important factors, which you're offering some of that at the Positive Birth Group, where you're listening to women, you're respecting their choices, you're enthusiastically supporting them to explore those choices and to feel positive about the birth in all its forms. And so what kind of transformations have you seen with women that have come to your groups over time?
Oh gosh, all sorts. I mean, it's always lovely when we get those mums coming back with a baby and a lovely birth story. You know, even if there was the induction they didn't want, it was okay, because they'd spoke to people at the group, they knew what to expect. They still felt respected and in control because they knew what questions to ask. So I mean, we just hear such lovely things, don't we? And I think it's definitely what makes the difference for them was having that space that they could come and ask absolutely any question that wouldn't be seen as ridiculous, or, you know, not worthy, you know, not a question worthy of asking. And they were able to take that with them, almost take the group with them. I think sometimes on that journey into birth, remembering the words of the women that are there and what they've said, and feeling like those cheerleaders behind them.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've noticed it's empowerment, isn't it? It's moving from being passive and being a patient to actually being active, taking responsibility and being in control of what happens. And that's a huge, huge change in anybody's life at any point of their life, no matter what they're looking at, whether it's, you know, children, marriage, education, whatever it is. But it's really about changing and being completely active and empowered in what happens to them, to us, really. So and that can be very subtle. It can be sometimes, you know, women don't say it, but just the way they sit down is different from one week to another, and you think, gosh, you know, I can notice the body language has changed, which is, I'm here and I'm active, I'm making something of it that I am in control of, and so it's beautiful, really.
Yeah, but we have seen those radical transformations, haven't we? You know, that woman that comes to the first one and they're tearful and unsure and frightened, anxiety sort of, you know, rocket high, and then you see them, or you get that email after the birth and the glowing photo and a baby on the breast, and you just it's just wow.
It makes it worthwhile.
It does, yeah, and to really hear, you know, that no matter what happened, because I think sometimes we focus a lot on the type of birth or the achievement, and I think I'm really, really, you know, strongly minded when it comes to that actually it's not what makes the huge difference. What makes the difference is the type of support they get, how much they involved in their own care, and the mindset they start with, that there isn't any failure in birth, and that sometimes, you know, medical necessity gets, you know, priority, but it's still about how do they communicate with the healthcare professional, and how do they make themselves heard? That's the biggest thing, really, is how do, without, you know, being stroppy but really to say, I understand what you're saying, but no thank you. And being so, you know, assertive and affirmative that, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm still exercising my view, my choice, and my voice.
Yeah, excellent. I think you've probably mostly answered the next question, which was what factors make for a positive birth experience, no matter what type of birth. I think we've been on that subject for the last few minutes.
Yeah.
Is there anything we've missed out? Anything else that you'd like to say about what makes a positive birth? Anything? I think we've covered quite a lot, really.
I think good support, but I think we're completely biased because we're doulas, obviously, and we can see that firsthand. Somebody who's getting a good set of support, and it's not just, you know, saying doulas are essential. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that women need to think about it. Who's in that room? Who is giving them the information that they need? And, you know, are they the right people? So kind of investing a little bit more time in that preparation. And it's not about paying a lot of money for special antenatal classes or doulas, but really investing themselves into looking at what's going to happen. And it's not just the birth, it's what's going to happen when the baby's here as well, because we kind of forget the postnatal period. And we know that the birth is a massive factor when it comes to what happens next, but what happens next can be also, you know, just as important. And going home for the first time with a baby is very overwhelming for a lot of, you know, parents. So it's about having these discussions in advance and saying, you know, what do you think it's going to be like?
Yeah, I think that's a really important role that the positive birth groups and groups like that can have, is that a first-time mother particularly has no idea. You don't really know till you do it. And we, like for my example, being the eldest child in my family, not having a lot of family around me, not having many friends who'd already had their children close by, I wasn't really aware of what it was like. I didn't have my other friends at school even were also the eldest child with not many other siblings, so we hadn't had that. I hadn't done babysitting. I hadn't had all that experience of what it was like. So it was kind of like, what will it be like? And I didn't know. But when you chat to other people and having a willingness to really hear, you can still not know, but you can go, okay, they're saying, and they know, and they're saying, prepare for this, prepare for that, like the support. And I think it's the support because it's not automatically there in our society. We don't automatically have the village around. It's something that I'd love women to hear and to plan for. So there is the option of doulas like yourself who can fill in for the missing village, and perhaps we're relatives that are further away. And then there's also a woman to think about who else could help them before and after with meals, with practical support in the house. And really, again, like you mentioned, the mindset, changing the mindset for the woman and the mother is doing everything. That as you're becoming a mother in those early days, you are doing very little of the practical things and much more of the just enjoying the baby and being supported, allowing yourself to be supported by everybody. So the group is a supportive factor in that, a really important factor in that. And what you do as doulas is also really important, I think, particularly in this kind of society where that support can be lacking and it can be quite isolating, becoming a mother when your whole life changes from where you were before. And
telling women that there is no perfect mother. There isn't a perfect way to be a parent. It's all trial and error. Even if it's on, you know, someone is on her, you know, having her third baby, it's going to be a different little person there with different needs, and it's going to be a different situation. They're a bit older, so things change. So it's not linear. Everything can be very, very different from one child to another, and that, you know, that nobody has the answers really. And it's that empowerment again to say, you know, just have a go. What works for you? How are you going to manage this, you know, sleep or lack of? How are you going to manage this feeding? How are you going to manage looking after the other children at the same time? What's going to work for you? So it's really about that yeah, it's empowerment. It's that word all the time, isn't it? Going back to say, you know, what are your instincts telling you? What would you like to do? Even if, you know, you've heard another 10 people telling you 10 different things, what does it mean for you? Yeah,
everyone's full of advice.
And putting that voice back into that particular mother and say, okay, so it's about you really and what you want to do. What's going to work for you?
I think that's really a key thing. Yeah. Lovely. And what do you find awe-inspiring about women giving birth and birth itself?
Oh God, everything.
Gosh.
You could have a whole interview on each question, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, watching women step into their own power is, there's just no words for that moment where, you know, they sort of really let go of their mind and go into their body and just become this almost fantastical goddess roaring, you know. It's and all women do it regardless of how they feel that they looked afterwards, or what sounds they make, or what they did, or how their birth unfolds. They all go through this huge transformative process that I don't think will ever stop fascinating me for as long as I live, really. Birthing new life, yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah,
the mechanics of it just amazes me. And I'm still, you know, having done this job for a long time and being interested in, you know, I'm still learning every time how nature has actually planned it and how absolutely amazing it is. It's just all the kind of things we put in the way, you know, all the obstacles we put in front of women to be able to follow their instinct, their body, their natural inclination of birth, which is a bit of a problem for me, really. Although, you know, I think medical support is essential because it does save lives, and we do. But I think there are lots of things we put in place nowadays and within the system, which is just unnecessary, really. And kind of stripping it down and understanding what the hormones are about, what, you know, I like to strip all the numbers as well and say, you know, what does the body do and why does it do it? And it's all linked to one another, the way she feels mentally, physically, how the baby's moving, the baby's position, the kind of natural position of a birthing mother, all of that is all linked to the first hour, the microbiome, I mean, all the things that, you know, we cover in antenatal preparation, that is all linked together to make that birth happen, and to listen to that. That's what I'm kind of think, gosh, you know, if we could just do that, just listen to that and then go with it, it'd be fantastic.
Amazing. Wonderful. And what breaks your heart that you would like to see change for women becoming mothers today?
Oh, that's tough to put into words, because it's just still so prevalent. You know, the difficulties that they face navigating the system, really is just still so prevalent, and it kind of breaks your heart hearing the same stories again, hearing the same language over and over again. Well, I don't think I'll be allowed to do that. I wasn't allowed to do that. You know, their voices getting quashed and quashed and quashed by the system that just isn't set up for them. And that's really difficult. A lot of the time, not even sometimes, just hearing. It's the language, I think, that really eats at me the most, because then you get that frustration of, you know, how can this have not changed yet? We've been having these conversations around birth for such a long time now. How are we still hearing the same things 10 years on, 20 years on? I mean, I'm sure there's more experienced people than I that could say it hasn't changed in 50 years, you know. And that's hard because it shouldn't be like that. Women shouldn't be left so doubtful of themselves through the system, and so fearful of it sometimes. You know, you would hope that by now we would have had this lovely meeting in the middle where we're using medical expertise appropriately and honouring women's innate ability to give birth, and you would hope there would be this sweet spot in the middle by now. And there isn't, and that's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, what breaks my heart is that, you know, we're just focusing completely on the wrong thing, really. I mean, antenatally, I think that it's all about appointments and numbers and measurements, and actually, you know, all that time could sometimes be spent talking about how to prepare themselves mentally, how to prepare themselves physically, what is a healthy pregnancy, talking about when the baby comes afterwards, and women are just kind of kept in the dark because the system is not, you know, geared up to. I think a lot of the time I feel that women are not believed to be intelligent enough to actually make these decisions. We're treated a little bit like, you know, well, actually, I mean, there's a very interesting sketch, a really hilarious sketch from Monty Python, in The Meaning of Life, about, you know, this scene about the obstetricians and the mother having a baby. But, you know, it's like, what do I do? She asks, and then he says, nothing, you're not qualified. And that's what breaks my heart, actually, that she's far more qualified than anybody else in that room, actually, because she's built for it. She didn't have to go and do, you know, 3 or 4 years of medicine to know, because her body's going to do it no matter what. So yeah, that what breaks my heart, that we're just kind of concentrating on the wrong things, and therefore lead women into a path which, you know, is not where they're going to learn what they need to learn to have these babies or to find their voice.
Thank you. So to change back to more lighter discussion, if there was one thing you would like women listening to take away and take to heart today, what would that be?
Spend more time thinking about birth and baby than what kind of pram you're going to buy. more money, less money on the pram, and more money about what does it feel like, and what does it mean for me and my baby later on.
Definitely with you on that.
What really matters, isn't it? You know, and the default answer to that a lot of the time, well, I just want a healthy baby, but you know, that shouldn't even be on the table, because of course everybody wants a healthy baby, but yeah, definitely spend more.
The bar of it from a healthy baby's kind of like with a given, right? That's
yeah, this is
it.
it.
Raise the bar of what else you want.
Yeah, definitely.
No one's an expert in birth, I think, and I think that women just need to remember that. And every birth is different. It's going to be a different experience. Even if it's a similar birth, the experience will be different every single time. Parenting is different. So, you know, it's good to educate ourselves, but also remember that, you know, you're okay, you're enough, and you're going to do it no matter what. So and that's enough.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. That's really inspiring conversation that I think a lot of women will benefit from listening to. So thank you so much for coming and chatting to me today and talking about.
Thank you very much for asking us.
Yeah, I know it's just so wonderful to have more conversations and for more women to hear, and just to, if it even reaches one woman who just goes, maybe, and they do something differently and it benefits them, then it's, you know, worthwhile doing. And I do hope that there's plenty of women listening who are inspired by the conversation to ask for more and to have more for themselves and their baby as they start this journey of motherhood. So thank you so much for speaking to you today, and I look forward to more conversations, and I'll see you soon. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.